Imagine boarding a flight with nothing but excitement in your heart, and within minutes being told to leave for no reason at all. This is exactly what happened to Maya and Alana, twin sisters whose story would soon shake an entire airline to its core. Maya and Alana Johnson were like mirrors of each other. Same curly hair tied into neat ponytails, matching pastel sweaters, and wide smiles that carried the joy of youth. At just 17, the twin sisters were known for their bubbly personalities and the way they always carried sunshine with them. This trip, however, wasn't just any trip. They were flying across the country to visit their grandmother, someone they hadn't seen in over a year. The day began perfectly. They arrived early at the airport, checked in without trouble, and even snapped a quick selfie in front of the boarding gate. "This is going to be the best week ever," Alana whispered as they scanned their boarding passes and walked down the jet bridge. Inside the plane, the twins giggled as they looked for their seats. Maya had claimed the window seat, while Alana was more than happy with the aisle. They placed their backpacks carefully, settled in, and began chatting about what they would do once they landed. The passengers nearby smiled warmly, charmed by their energy. But not everyone shared that feeling. A flight attendant passed by, gave them a quick glance, and frowned slightly. Maya noticed it but brushed it off. Maybe she's just having a bad day, she thought. Yet within minutes, things took a sharp turn. Another staff member approached with a stern expression. "Ladies, could you please come with me?" Confused, the twins exchanged glances. "Something wrong?" Alana asked politely. "No explanation, just follow me," the attendant replied curtly. Passengers shifted in their seats, whispering. Some even pulled out their phones to record, sensing something unusual was happening. The twins stood up reluctantly, clutching their small travel pillows. Their hearts raced as they walked down the aisle, every pair of eyes following them. Back at the boarding gate, they were told, "You're not allowed on this flight." "Why?" Maya asked, her voice trembling. "There's no reason we can share. You just can't fly with us today," came the cold response. The twins' excitement shattered into shock. They had done nothing wrong, yet here they were, stranded, embarrassed, and humiliated in front of strangers. Neither of them knew that this unfair moment would soon spark a storm no airline could escape. The waiting area outside the gate buzzed with tension. Travelers who had just watched the twins being escorted off the plane whispered among themselves. Some shook their heads in disbelief, while others looked down, uneasy but unwilling to interfere. Maya and Alana sat together on a row of cold plastic chairs, backpacks resting at their feet. Their smiles were gone, replaced with quiet confusion. Maya tapped her fingers anxiously against her phone, while Alana hugged her pillow tightly, as though clinging to something safe in the middle of chaos. A middle-aged woman who had witnessed the entire scene slowly approached them. "Sweethearts," she said gently, "I saw what happened in there. You didn't do anything wrong. Don't let them make you feel otherwise." Her words were kind, but they did little to ease the sting of embarrassment. Around them, a few other passengers nodded in agreement, but the twins still felt powerless. For two young girls, standing against an airline felt impossible. Maya tried to stay composed for her sister's sake. She knew Alana was more sensitive, more likely to let tears fall. "Don't cry," Maya whispered softly. "We'll figure this out." But her own voice wavered. She reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. Their father's number was already at the top of her contacts list. For a moment, she hesitated. He was a busy man, often in meetings and carrying responsibilities bigger than most could imagine. The last thing she wanted was to disturb him with something they couldn't explain. But as she looked at her sister's trembling hands, she pressed the call button. The line rang only once before a deep, steady voice answered. "Maya, everything all right?" She swallowed hard. "Dad, they took us off the plane." There was silence on the other end. Alana leaned closer, her eyes wide, listening. Maya continued, her words tumbling out in fragments. She explained how they had boarded like everyone else, how they were asked to leave without reason, and how no explanation was given. Her father didn't interrupt. He listened carefully, absorbing every detail. His calmness steadied the twins, but underneath it, they sensed something stirring. Finally, his voice came through, firm but gentle. "Stay where you are. Don't argue, don't cry. I'll handle this." The twins exchanged a look, half relief, half curiosity. They had seen their father solve problems before, but never like this. This wasn't about business or boardrooms. This was personal. For the first time that day, Maya and Alana allowed themselves to breathe. On the other end of the phone, Mr. Johnson sat in his office surrounded by tall glass windows and the distant hum of a busy city. He had been reviewing reports when his daughter's trembling voice reached him. In that instant, spreadsheets and deadlines faded into irrelevance. All he could think about were his daughters, his pride, his joy, his responsibility. He leaned back in his chair, steadying his own breathing so his calmness could anchor them. "Tell me exactly what happened," he said softly. Maya repeated the details as best she could. Her voice cracked when she explained how other passengers had stared, how people had pulled out their phones, and how she and Alana had been forced to walk out of the plane with no explanation. On the other end, Alana's small voice broke in. "Dad, we didn't do anything. Why would they do that to us?" Mr. Johnson closed his eyes, pressing 2 fingers against his forehead. He had built a career on staying composed in high-pressure situations, but this was different. This wasn't about numbers, shareholders, or quarterly reports. This was about 2 young girls being treated unfairly, and those girls were his daughters. "Listen to me," he said firmly. "You did nothing wrong. Don't blame yourselves. This is on them, not you." The twins sat quietly, holding the phone on speaker between them. His steady voice gave them a kind of strength that they had lost the moment they stepped off that plane. "I want you both to stay right where you are," he continued. "Don't go anywhere until I arrive. And if anyone from the airline approaches you, you tell them your father is already on his way." There was a pause. Maya and Alana exchanged glances, their fear slowly replaced by trust. "Okay, Dad," Maya whispered. "Good girls," he replied warmly, before his tone shifted once more, low and resolute. "I'll take care of this. No one embarrasses my daughters without answering for it." When the call ended, the twins felt a quiet relief wash over them. They didn't know what their father would do, but they knew he never made promises he couldn't keep. Meanwhile, Mr. Johnson stood from his desk, grabbed his jacket, and made one call of his own. Not to his assistant, not to a lawyer, but directly to the airline's executive line. His voice, calm but commanding, sent ripples through the system. The storm was just beginning. The airline's executive office rarely received direct calls from people outside their circle. But when the receptionist answered and heard the name Mr. Johnson, her tone immediately shifted. His reputation in the corporate world wasn't just known, it carried weight. He wasn't the type to waste words, and when he did speak, people listened. "This is Mr. Johnson," his calm voice began. "2 of your passengers, my daughters, were removed from one of your flights. They were given no explanation, only humiliation in front of a full cabin. I want to know why." The receptionist froze. Within moments, the call was transferred up the chain. A manager tried to answer, fumbling with polite phrases. There must have been a misunderstanding, perhaps a miscommunication. But Mr. Johnson cut in, his voice still measured but sharper now. "Don't insult me with vague words. I want specifics. Which policy did they violate? What procedure justified this? And why were 2 17-year-old girls treated as if they had done something wrong when they had not?" The manager stammered, flipping through digital reports, but there was nothing to find. No notes, no incidents recorded, no legitimate reason. Just a blank space where accountability should have been. By now, directors were being pulled into the situation. Emails and phone calls bounced between departments. The incident, which had been brushed aside only 30 minutes earlier, had suddenly turned into a crisis at the top levels of the airline. Meanwhile, back at the airport, Maya and Alana sat quietly. They didn't know the details of what their father was saying, but they could sense the shift. The same staff who had been dismissive earlier were now watching them nervously, whispering into radios, and making hurried phone calls. Inside the corporate office, Mr. Johnson's voice never wavered. "Here's what you need to understand," he said firmly. "This isn't about me. This is about two young women who deserved respect, but were instead singled out, embarrassed, and denied service without reason. That is unacceptable, and until I have answers, you will not be flying another passenger today." The line went silent for a long moment. The weight of his words settled like a stone. Executives exchanged looks, realizing this wasn't going to vanish quietly. Mr. Johnson didn't yell, didn't threaten, but his clarity and authority carried the force of someone who had shut down companies before and could do it again. One call had set an unstoppable chain reaction in motion. At the boarding gate, the atmosphere had shifted. Only an hour earlier, airline staff had treated the situation with dismissive calm, certain the two teenagers would quietly accept their removal. But now, whispers spread through headsets and hurried calls came from the higher-ups. The name Mr. Johnson had reached every manager in the terminal, and suddenly, no one wanted to be responsible. Maya and Alana still sat side by side, their backpacks at their feet, the weight of humiliation lingering. Around them, passengers who had seen the incident earlier were still murmuring. A man in a business suit leaned over to whisper to his wife. They had no reason. I saw the whole thing. Then, in a flurry of motion, a gate manager approached the twins. He wore a forced smile, one that didn't reach his nervous eyes. "Ladies, I want to apologize," he said quickly, kneeling down to appear sympathetic. "There seems to have been a mistake." Alana looked at him cautiously. "A mistake? You told us we couldn't fly." The man's smile faltered. "Yes, well, sometimes misunderstandings occur. Please accept our deepest apologies. We'll rebook you immediately and, of course, provide meal vouchers." He glanced at the other passengers nearby, lowering his voice. "There's no need for this to escalate." But Maya, still hurt and confused, pressed on. "If it was a mistake, then why couldn't you tell us that earlier? Why did everyone just say we couldn't board?" The manager shifted uncomfortably, tugging at his collar. He had no answer. He knew every word was being watched, every expression studied. Already passengers' phones were raised, recording the exchange. Another employee rushed over with bottled water, offering it to the twins as though the gesture could erase the embarrassment. A supervisor soon followed, echoing the same rehearsed apology. Yet the girls could see the panic underneath the polished words. They weren't being treated kindly out of compassion. They were being managed because someone powerful was now involved. The twins exchanged a look. Neither spoke, but both understood the same thing. This wasn't about them anymore. The airline wasn't worried about two teenage girls. They were worried about their father. As the crowd grew restless, murmurs of support rippled through the waiting area. People shook their heads, whispering words like unfair and shameful. The atmosphere was no longer in the airline's control, and the truth was about to catch up with them. The automatic doors of the terminal slid open, and in walked Mr. Johnson. Tall, composed, and dressed in a sharp suit, he didn't rush or raise his voice. Yet the weight of his presence filled the space instantly. People glanced up from their phones, sensing he wasn't just another traveler. Maya and Alana spotted him at once. They jumped from their seats, relief flooding their faces. "Oh!" they cried, rushing into his arms. He embraced them both tightly, pressing a reassuring kiss to each forehead. "I'm here now," he whispered. "You're safe." The gate area fell into silence as he turned toward the cluster of airline staff waiting nervously. Managers, supervisors, and attendants stood stiffly, shuffling papers and avoiding direct eye contact. It wasn't often they had to answer directly to someone who could shift their entire company's reputation with a single sentence. Mr. Johnson stepped forward, his voice calm but resolute. "I want someone here to explain to me, in clear words, why my daughters were removed from this flight." The gate manager cleared his throat, his face pale. "Sir, there appears to have been a miscommunication between the crew and staff. It was never our intention to— Stop, Mr. Johnson interrupted, his tone even but cutting. A miscommunication doesn't end with two young girls being escorted off a plane in front of hundreds of passengers. What exactly were they accused of? Silence. The staff shifted uncomfortably, exchanging helpless glances. No one dared to speak, because the truth was painfully simple. There was no accusation, no violation, nothing at all. Passengers began murmuring louder. A man raised his voice from the crowd. They didn't do anything. I was sitting right next to them. Another added, I filmed the whole thing. It's already online. Several others nodded, holding up their phones as evidence. Mr. Johnson's eyes moved slowly across the staff. So there was no reason, he said quietly. You embarrassed my daughters, stripped them of their dignity, and offered no explanation. One supervisor attempted to step forward. Sir, please accept our apologies. But Mr. Johnson didn't let him finish. Apologies are empty when the damage is done. You should be asking yourselves how many others have been treated this way. People without someone to stand up for them. This isn't just about my daughters. This is about your entire system failing its responsibility. The truth hung heavy in the air. Every attempt at justification had collapsed under the weight of reality. Staff members avoided his gaze. Passengers shook their heads, and the atmosphere grew charged with accountability. Mr. Johnson didn't raise his voice, but his composure spoke louder than anger ever could. In that moment, it became clear. This was no longer a private dispute. This was about to become a story that would reach far beyond the airport walls. The airline had made a mistake, but now they were about to face the consequences. The situation at the gate had reached its peak. Airline employees huddled together trying to figure out how to contain the damage. But the truth was already out of their hands. Passengers had captured the incident on their phones, uploading it to social media, where it spread like wildfire. Within minutes, hashtags began trending. #twins removed and #airline accountability. Mr. Johnson remained calm, standing with his daughters by his side. His silence now felt more powerful than any speech. He didn't need to shout or demand. Everyone already knew the weight of what had happened. Finally, the regional director of the airline arrived, out of breath and visibly unsettled. He walked quickly to Mr. Johnson, extending a hand nervously. Sir, I want to personally apologize on behalf of the airline. This was unacceptable. Our staff's actions do not reflect our values. Mr. Johnson didn't take his hand. Instead, he looked at Maya and Alana and then back at the director. You don't need to apologize to me. You need to apologize to them. They are the ones you humiliated. The director turned, bowing his head toward the twins. Young ladies, we are so sorry for what you went through. You did absolutely nothing wrong, and this should never have happened. Maya and Alana stood quietly, still shaken but a little stronger with their father beside them. Alana finally asked, her voice soft but firm, if we weren't your CEO's daughters, would anyone have cared? The director froze. His silence was the only answer they needed. Around them, the passengers murmured in agreement, their sympathy now transforming into admiration for the courage of the twins. They weren't just standing in an airport anymore. They were standing for something bigger. Mr. Johnson placed a protective arm around his daughters. This is why things must change, he said. My daughters won't be the last if you continue with policies that allow staff to act without accountability. Every passenger deserves dignity, no matter their age, race, or background. The director nodded quickly, promising immediate reviews, training, and changes. But Mr. Johnson knew it would take more than promises. I'll be following up, he said firmly, because words without action are nothing. The airline soon shut down its operations for the day, announcing an internal review. News outlets picked up the story within hours, with headlines spreading across the country. Twins removed without reason, airline under fire after CEO steps in. But for Maya and Alana, the lesson was deeply personal. They realized that while unfairness could break someone down, having the courage to stand up, or having someone stand for you, could turn the tide. Later that night, sitting together in their grandmother's cozy living room, the twins recounted the entire ordeal. Their grandmother held their hands, tears in her eyes. "You've shown the world something important," she said gently. "Respect isn't earned by titles or money. It's a right that should be given to every person." Maya and Alana leaned against their father, grateful not just for his influence, but for the way he had handled everything with calm strength. To them, he wasn't the powerful CEO the world admired. He was simply Dad, the one who never let them down. The story of the twins and their father didn't just change an airline. It inspired thousands to speak up about their own experiences, proving that sometimes one unfair moment can spark a movement for dignity and respect.